Tate Chronicles now transmitting.
Welcome to the Tate Chronicles on Healthcare Now Radio. And now, here's your host, Jim Tate.
Good day, citizens of the free world, from border to border, coast to coast, and to all the ships at sea. I bring you a warm welcome. This is your correspondent, Jim Tate. And thank you for tuning in to the Tate Chronicles. Join me as we explore the leading edge of healthcare, delivery, technology, and culture. My guest today from jolly old England is none other than Joseph Plampin, the Chief Commercial Officer at Tate Containers. Tate operates globally and provides scalable, containerized storage solutions designed to support supply chain continuity and operational flexibility. Joseph, thanks for joining me on this episode of the Tate Chronicles.
That's my pleasure, Jim. My pleasure indeed.
I know that Tate is a global network that supplies hot, cold, and ambient storage and transport solutions. But today I really want to focus on some of the issues that might be related to the healthcare aspects. But first, can you provide really a high-level overview of Tate Containers?
Yes, absolutely. So we're a global provider, as you mentioned, of storage solutions. So operating in more than 90 countries around the world. I guess we specialize in flexible storage. So that could be a self-storage facility where you could have an ambient container or a temperature-controlled container in a fixed location where you visit to collect stock or to deposit stock into a storage facility. Ambient containers, regular shipping containers, I guess you'd say, which we will deliver to companies to site or provide to shipping lines to transport stock around the world. But I think our most interesting storage solution is what we call our Arctic Store range, and they are the highly temperature controlled containers, which people use them for all sorts of industries. So we work across industries. You said medical, so pharmaceutical industry, the food industry, logistics, retail, anyone that needs to strictly control the temperature of their product, and the reliability of that product and the flexibility of that product is critical. I guess what defines us being such a large company providing that solution is our ability to deliver that storage as a service, meaning customers can deploy capacity very quickly, scale up, scale down, whilst avoiding heavy upfront investment, because these things they're not cheap, Jim. If you're looking to buy this kind of equipment, many businesses would have to have a huge upfront investment. So using a rental model, scaling up, scaling down, and minimizing that upfront investment. I think that's the most concise I can make.
No, that's good. A very broad buffet of services, but really based on. It sounds like especially temperature control.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about healthcare a little bit. I don't know how much Tate was involved, but back in 2020, they tell me there was a global pandemic.
I have heard of it, yes.
Yep. And there was a rush to create vaccines. They set the record for creating some COVID vaccines. And then those had to be shipped all over the world, vast amounts of them. I'm sure they were developed not only in the U.S., but other countries developed these. They had to be shipped. And vaccines, there's really a need to control the temperature of those vaccines before they're administered to somebody.
Yeah.
So, is there a certain range? I mean, I'm sure they can't be too hot, but they probably can't be too cold either. And a best practice is documentation throughout that chain of delivery of what the temperatures have been, or plus or minus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, we're a member of what's called the Cold Chain Federation, right? And the companies that exist within that forum are all of the major players in the pharmaceutical industry, all of the major players in the logistics industry that actually do the end-to-end, door-to-door transport from the facility where the vaccines are manufactured, processed, to the point of unloading, so the domestic market, if you will, all around the world. And one of the key objectives of the Cold Chain Federation is to ensure that end-to-end stability. Because interestingly enough, I was in central London last week with our CEO, attending a conference for the Cold Chain Federation where members of the Pfizer team and AstraZeneca team were there, talking about the challenges they face in maintaining that temperature. And as you quite rightly say, that temperature can vary depending on the medication or the vaccine that's being transported. And it could be a cool temperature, or it could be a minus frozen temperature. We provide solutions that go down to minus 70 degrees, our ultra freezers. But in general, the cold chain operates at about minus 20 degrees. And in fact, a lot of products, we're pushing to get people to move them at minus 15, because it's that simple 5-degree temperature variance can save a lot of consumption and become far more sustainable just by changing by 5 degrees. It's called the move to minus 15, if you want to look it up, and it's kind of a global strategy. But yeah, there is a huge emphasis on how you create that end-to-end stability. They have, it's quite mind-blowing when the vaccines come out of production. They're moved through what they call cold corridors internally. So the temperature inside the building, it's a tunnel where they maintain the temperature all the way through, and they load it into a container, much like ours, which then maintains that on the back of a truck through a generator to the ship. It's then put on a ship, plugged into the ship's generators to maintain that temperature, and then transported across the world or wherever it's going, unloaded onto another truck with a generator, taken to the end facility. So the whole time it's at that set point. And it's critical that at no point during that worldwide round trip, something goes wrong. And that's where we come in. It's providing the equipment that has that reliability.
You mentioned vaccines on ships. That can take weeks, I'm sure, to show up at a port.
Weeks and weeks. Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of it goes into UDLs and put onto air freight, and again, they have to have the same kind of controlled environment within those containers as the shipping containers do.
So we're talking about vaccines, probably blood products. Well, we've seen the rise of personal injectables here in the U.S., the GLP-1 medications that are shipped out with, ice packs and things like that. That's kind of like the lowest level. But let me back up a minute or two, Joseph, and ask you, so how long have you been involved with these issues, and how have you seen things change over time? Okay. Or the need for these kind of solutions?
The need is certainly growing. I mean, we've been involved in cold storage for a couple of decades now. We started out as an ambient container company, and then during the early noughties, kind of recognized this growing global need for cold chain for temperature controlled. So I guess it would have been, the early noughties that we really became seriously invested into it as a product and as part of our core business, really. Have we seen it change? Why are we seeing this trend? We have seen a shift massively towards more and more temperature sensitive products, particularly kind of biologics, vaccines, specialized medicines. And at the same time, I think supply chains in general, and especially the cold chain, they're becoming more global, more complex. I guess it increases the need for this, as I said earlier, this kind of ultra reliable temperature controlled solution throughout the end-to-end journey. And one other thing, interesting thing, I think reason why we're seeing this increase is because of regulations, right? Our friends, compliance and risk assessment and these regulatory factors. The documentation you mentioned earlier on, the kind of documentation of this process. These guys need to be super tight on ensuring they can prove the entire chain from end to end has been complied to at the right temperature. There's no risk. One of the guys from, I believe it was Pfizer, said last week in this conference, they need to be sure if they're asked by anyone, would you give your kids these vaccines? They need to be sure that they can say 100% sure, 100% yes. And so that needs to be documented. That needs to be regimental, the way that process takes place. So this regulatory focus, it raises the bar for everyone on how they can store and how they can transport these products, and that's why we have seen this huge increase in demand for our solutions. So, I guess overall, it's kind of a combination of the product complexity, the factors of global distribution, and then the stricter enforcement or the stricter requirements on these pharmaceutical companies that really drives the need for more advanced and more cold chain solutions.
Just as you're talking, thought occurred to me. There's some things that are going to be beyond your control. Transportation disruptions, things in the Middle East, storms, all kind of things. And I know you have a product relatively new, I guess, called Smart Arctic.
Yeah.
And so, what does that do in terms of being able to document temperatures and track temperatures and be able to view logs and receive alarms, things like that?
Yeah, so Smart Arctic is a kind of remote telemetry system. So it's all centralized, run through software. The basics of it is that it's a monitoring system within the Arctic store, which measures the internal temperatures and humidity levels, so that you can at any given point check, go in, see the status, see what's happening with your product, ensure that it's at the right temperature, ensure there's been no deviances. It sets alarms so that if there is a problem or the machine recognizes there could be a problem, you're notified with plenty of warning to get that rectified before the worst case scenario. And it's hugely popular. Who wouldn't want to be able to monitor the internal conditions if your product is that sensitive. It is hugely popular, and customers of ours, when you hire these containers, you're given logins so that you can monitor it yourselves, so that you have the freedom to just continuously check. It sends you the alarms and the alerts if there's any deviation or any problem. But yeah, it's a great solution. Remote telemetry.
Let me mention to our listeners, if you're just joining us, I'm Jim Tate. On this episode of the Tate Chronicles, I'm speaking with Joseph Plampin, the Chief Commercial Officer at Titan Containers. Being able to track the temperature and status, is it within your scope that you're also tracking the physical location of things that are being shipped?
So the Smart Arctic system, it's run off a modem. Obviously, it needs to transmit the data that it's getting from that container, and it transmits that through a modem. And then online, you log in and you track that container, you track the temperature and so on. So, yes, there's two parts to it. Firstly, that it transmits all of the relevant data in terms of the temperature and giving you the reassurance that your product is stable. But as it's a modem, it also gives locational data. So, yes, sure, you can use it to track that container as necessary. But this is part of the logistics network. We supply the equipment to keep things at temperature. The vast majority of end-to-end tracking for pharmaceutical companies will be with the actual logistics provider. So the person that's
Sure.
booking the passage, if you will, from wherever the manufacture takes place to wherever the distribution point is. But yes, our containers, our Arctic stores have the facility to enable you to monitor where they are and also, how they're doing.
And that kind of just popped up for me, Joseph, because I'm thinking that somebody's at the distribution port, for lack of a better term. They want to know when their product is coming, or if it's 2 days away, or whatever. To be apprised of any delays like that. So we kind of talked about in the background how things are changing. Going forward, do you see any new options, or how things may morph in temperature controlled storage moving forward? Are there going to be any? Well, and before let me ask this question. I know probably in some cases you may use systems that employ dry ice. Is that true?
Right.
Yeah, which produces carbon dioxide. So do you have to monitor that carbon dioxide when things are being shipped?
So we don't use dry ice. It's not something we use, but certainly we are asked regularly by companies that do use dry ice to put those dry ice containers inside our Arctic stores to help stabilize the dry ice. So it's not something we use. Right. But it is something that our customers use, and they will put them inside. And then, yes, you're quite right. There is a carbon dioxide consideration to take in, on board. But yeah, dry ice is not something we use. We're more, this is kind of answering two questions, I think. Where do I see this? Where do I see this going? What fluctuations do I see? And what are we doing about it? You say carbon dioxide. Yes, there's potential there, but I think it's bigger to consider that freezers, like your chest freezer at home, or the Arctic store container freezers. Traditionally, all refrigeration technology revolves around fluorocarbon gases, right? CFCs, that type of thing, which, as we know, are damaging, right? So the biggest drive, the biggest change and evolution that I think we are currently seeing, and I think we will continue to see, is, yes, you know what? You can keep your vaccines at a stable environment and a stable temperature, end to end across the cold chain. This is possible, which is fantastic, and this is growing and getting bigger and bigger. The problem with that is that a lot of the current solutions raise questions as to the kind of sustainability factor, the environmental factor of what that looks like. When you've got this industry growing and growing and more going across the world using this type of technology, then something's got to give, something's got to change. And that's what we're focusing on. We have a new product which has just been launched, and I'm actually very proud to say we have just last week won an award by the Cold Chain Federation for the most sustainable innovation of the year. It's called our Arctic Store Horizon container. Horizon, as in looking to the future. Sure. This is our kind of most advanced solution that we have to date. It's a combination of various things, all geared towards this sustainability that we're going to be seeing more and more of. Regulations are going to tighten up. These big companies, these blue chips, pharmaceutical companies are challenged, as we all are, on our sustainability and our kind of corporate responsibility. So what we've done is we've combined a few things. Firstly, what's called vacuum insulation. So traditional insulation, where you've got a couple of pieces of metal with some foam or some carbon in to reduce thermal penetration. This is kind of old news. We're moving to sort of vacuum insulation, where you create a vacuum within these panels, and it can save up to it's a 30% better insulation. Now, why does that matter? Well, if your insulation's better, your temperature variance inside the container is reduced, which means your machine is going to be working less hard to keep that temperature stable. Sure. So actually, it makes a huge difference. We then combine that with a new machine. This machine uses a gas which has a 0.5 global warming potential, GWP. It's one of the measurements. It has a 0.5 GWP measurement, which is, it's not just better, it's dramatically better, as in it's gone from 400 to 0.5, right, for these types of machines. So you combine that more efficient machine with the lower GWP, or the virtually non-existent GWP, with this new vacuum insulation panel. Then you add in the finishing touches of water-based paints rather than the more damaging oil-based, and you have this product that's designed significantly to reduce the energy consumption. We know that it's around 55% consumption saving on average. It has the same performance, same reliability, but it has this better insulation, this low GWP. It utilizes solar. So there's the whole roof of the container is solar, and angles up to catch the sun at the given times of day. So you can run this machine, in obviously the sunnier climates, which you may benefit from in Alabama. I unfortunately don't, in the rather grey London area. But in certain areas of the world, this solar can save you up to 55% of your consumption and energy consumption costs, which is a game changer, absolute game changer. And we're going to be seeing, as time goes on, this push for sustainability and this push for corporate responsibility to the world, saving the environment and doing what we can anyway. This is what we're going to see changing more and more as we move forwards.
Not only those improvements, I imagine that there is what they call a hockey stick, scaling up of the need with more of a global economy, more specialized medications that are being shipped more places. And it seems like you are making improvements to your existing thing, but underneath it, it is your customers that are driving the need.
Yeah.
We've got these vaccines. We need to get them across the world to someplace else. And so I imagine that need looks like it's going to continue to grow quite a bit.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's going to continue to grow. Every evidence that we have would support that it's continuing to grow exponentially, and so which now, as I said, now just drives the problem onto us as the provider of the equipment in which it can be transported, to make a version of that which is more cost effective, with regards to the consumption values. Consumption or energy costs to run one of these units can be high, so it's up to us to drive that down by using better technology, and to create a more sustainable product, which we have just launched, to make sure that the impact of this increase on the environment is lower, better.
Joseph, we only have about 3 more minutes, but one other thing I want to touch on. I'm just thinking about the services you provide, and going from delivery point A to point B. You must have staging centers all over the world.
Yeah, so as I said, we operate in more than 90 countries. We work with logistics, we work with pharmaceuticals. So really, it's a matter of us delivering the solution to the desired point, whether that be to one of the pharmaceutical companies, factories, industries, whether that be to the logistics providers, the FedExes, the DHLs, the UPSs, whoever. We deliver the solution to them, and then they utilize it within their logistics chain. So 90 locations around the world, and in those locations we may have. So in the US, for example, we'll have a variety of staging areas, or depots, as we would call them, across North America.
Then you have to have the ability to load containers, receive and load containers, and ship them out. Finally, Joseph, how can our listeners find out more about Titan Containers and services and what you do?
So the best way, the most concise way would be to go to our global website. We have websites for every market that we operate, but we do have one, I guess you call it the one website to rule all, and that is titancontainers.com.
To our audience, thanks for joining me on this episode of the Tate Chronicles, and I certainly offer a salute to my guest today, Joseph Plampin of Titan Containers. Joseph, thanks for coming aboard today.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
You can find more information on this show's program page at healthcarenowradio.com. That's healthcarenowradio.com. Until we meet again, here's wishing you smooth sailing and safe harbors.
Tate Chronicles transmission ending now.